There is something special happening today, and we're in the time of recognizing the end of a particular era. Probably a 100-year era where we have accepted the idea the government should expand, our government should be the policeman of the world, we should have an income tax, and we should have a Federal Reserve to print money when we need money. But guess what? It hasn't worked. And what this crisis is talking about right now is that it's a failure. It's a failure of the Keynesian theory of economic policy, and therefore we have the opportunity to replace Keynesian intervention, big government involved in the economy, and replace it with free markets, sound money, and a gold standard. That's what will solve the problem. In 1913, of course, dramatic changes. Woodrow Wilson changed our foreign policy. He had a wonderful, idealistic thought that we, the people of the United States, have this moral responsibility to make the world safe for democracy. Just think of what's happened since 1913. I mean, we've been in a lot of wars, and they're pretty persistent. But he also knew, and the progressive era knew that, well, you can't do that. You can't usher in the welfare state and the warfare state without a lot of money. So they had to have the income tax, and of course that has grown. At the same time, you had to have the backup, which is the Federal Reserve and the printing of money, which means that a major two-step policy that we could have if you really want your freedoms back in limited government. You get rid of the Federal Reserve and you get rid of the income tax. That's crazy talk. How could you live without the income tax? How are we going to pay for the government? Well, why don't you become your own government, govern your own lives, and let you keep your own money and spend it the way you want to spend it? But that's a good goal, is getting rid of the taxing system. I'll tell you what, taxes and the IRS and all the abuse, that's a symptom. It's a symptom of a changed attitude of the American people and what the role of government ought to be. The founders had a precise role of what they thought the government should be. It was very limited. Read Article 1, Section 8. Very little authority for the Congress and the federal government to do the things that they've been doing. So what they have done, though, is they've changed their attitude. They've changed attitude about our responsibilities around the world. I believe very strongly in a strong national defense, but I don't believe in preemptive war. I don't believe in starting wars against countries that have done anything to us. System, a different tax system, we as a people have to decide whether or not we should be doing it. Now, one thing is, even when I go to crowds that are less sympathetic than this crowd, I'll say, even if you disagree with me about changing our foreign policy, I said, we'll win this argument because we're going broke. This is how the Soviet system collapsed. Guess what? The Soviets were so foolish, they got bogged down in Afghanistan. So I would say, let's get home from Afghanistan and bring our troops home. Foreign policy, we can have a strong national defense, change our attitude about a welfare system that has failed, change our attitude about free market economics and a sound monetary system and honest money, get rid of the business cycle under those conditions. We wouldn't need all this collection agencies up in Washington, all this invasion of our privacy and into our lives. But if that would happen, believe me, this country would change. Right now, we're still a pretty fortunate country. We're pretty wealthy still, but the wealth is dependent on debt and continuous inflation and trust in the currency that doesn't deserve the trust. And we now are seeing a dramatic change. After this 100 years, there's been a big change, and now we're facing this bankruptcy. We're facing a crisis time which can change dramatically in a short period of time now because the foundations of our liberties have eroded. The foundation of our monetary system has eroded. The foundation of our economic system. The foundation of a sound foreign policy have eroded. So things could get it out of control rather quickly. Matter of fact, I consider the most dangerous spot in the world right now is probably over in the Middle East with Syria. I mean, all these things going on over there, and we're continually involved. Just think of how much money we, the American people, spent on propping up the Egyptians and having this artificial peace with Israel. Oh, this was for the benefit of Israel, the benefit of us, who knows what. But it was like $45 billion we gave to Egypt, and then it ended badly. The people turned against the government that we prop up. We prop up dictators around the world. So there's a revolution going on over there, so we support the revolutionaries, and they happen to be a bunch of bad guys, and they have Al-Qaeda now in those countries. Libya's the same thing. Libya's a mess now. And we, through NATO, not through Congress, that would be one thing that we could do to slow this up. Don't let our government go to war without a declaration of war by the American people. Have told us that they can get the authority from NATO, United Nations. They don't have to come through the Congress. But it's up to us to change that. Government is a reflection of the people. If we want a welfare war for a state and it happens, it's our fault. If they're doing things that you don't like, it's up to us to do something about it. And individuals who participate in that. I don't believe in preemptive war. I believe that you only declare the war and you do it in defense of this country and not to go in and change other governments around the world.